can be a bit longer. So I'm hopeful to do more of that in the future as well. And I do have other things in the works. I don't want to give too much away without having a more solid base for it. So please stay tuned, stay on the channels and chat. And that's pretty much what I have for the information side of things. And I totally did not change the title of that slide. This is not the technical skill acquisition panel. This is the mental wellness panel. If you can't tell, I apparently have a pretty stressful, fast-paced job at the moment and do not have time to complete slides. So that is totally on me. So we're gonna have this panel talk about some of the issues that they've encountered regarding mental wellness. And that includes everything from stress, burnout, imposter syndrome, which comes up a lot, and a couple other topics as well. So with that said, let me make sure I have all of my ducks in a row for that. I'm going to actually ask Clay to switch the view over. Clay, if you're alive. Well, he's muted, so thank you. Great. So I'm going to pull up the list of questions real quick. Let's see which of my 10 million tabs I put it in. That's not it. All right. Okay, awesome. And exit stage left, I'm actually going to have you unmute our panelists. Great, thank you very much. The Zoom gymnastics are always fun. As I say every time, I hate AV, and I am always happy when someone else is taking care of it. Okay, so this panel, we have Triwolf, Hey Ali Hansen, Doug Brush, and Rando, otherwise known as Danny Akaki, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's also muted. Exit stage left. Would you mind unmuting Danny? Or you can just keep him muted.
Said no one ever.
It might be better for everyone if he's muted.
Please, somebody let Danny talk. Said absolutely not a single person. No, that's fine. I actually feel I usually have my handle on there, and Zoom is being a jerk and won't let me change it. So
I'm not the only one.
No, it's Akatsuki, but it couldn't matter less, honestly.
Akatsuki. Interesting. Cool. Awesome. So before I start this panel, I actually do want to say one thing real quick. And that is, no one here is a mental health expert. No one here is a psychologist. If you're experiencing any kinds of severe mental problems or are feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you're going to harm yourself or anyone else, please seek professional help. This is not something that any one of us is qualified to talk to you about. I want to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy and happy as much as is possible in 2020. But we do have boundaries and our own issues to deal with. So I want to just stress that, we are completely happy to share experiences and to help everyone as best as we can, but we are not professionals. So just want to make that clear before we roll with this. All right, so I actually didn't see any submissions for questions from mentees so far, and I will check throughout the evening to see if anyone does have some particular questions. But we put together some from the mentors as well, and I'm just going to start with the top one of those. Actually, one second. Okay. So the first question I have for a panelist that I'm going to pick on is, now let's see, who do I want to pick on? Who should I pick on? Let me start with Danny, because apparently we want to mute him most of the time. This question is, as an InfoSec professional, how much stress should you expect in your day-to-day work?
I mean, probably a fair amount, like even at the lower levels, it's because when you start out in this business, it's like it's pretty much right away. Like, especially we do put a lot of stress on the noobs when they come in of like, get up to speed, know this, know that. Oh, you don't know this, go study this. I mean, I don't know if it's still like that because I haven't been at that level for a little bit now, but when I started, 8-9 years ago, it was, you got to be a generalist and you got to know this, and oh my god, you couldn't analyze this. So like the stress starts at like day one, but then you keep leveling up. So I guess my answer is constant. It's like constant. Now, to be clear, there's good stress and there's bad stress. The good stress is where you are doubting yourself and beating yourself up, but then there's the good stress of like, I got to get good and cool. This is awesome, and oh, this is kind of hard, but this is really fun. So there's at least, if you were gonna look at like one of those like waveforms of like an MP3 file, there's always like a little stutter in it, and sometimes it goes like this, and then sometimes but it never quite flatlines. So there's the wrench is always tightened a little bit.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think along what Danny was saying is like, and that's a big problem I think within our industry. It's the ambiguity. A lot of people try to get into this saying, okay, what do I do? What's my game plan on day one? And a lot of times the people that have been in this position for a long time are just like, I don't know, we had to figure it out, so you figured it out too. And I don't think that's scalable or necessarily healthy. And so what we don't have is enough of a game plan for onboarding a lot of people in different areas of cybersecurity. It's just this expectation that you're bright, you're capable, so figure it out. That puts a lot of undue stress and burden on the mind of those trying to get in that's already maybe in a new organization or in a new role. They're worried about their financial stability and like, shit, if I do the right or wrong thing, what are the guidelines? And that's because we don't have those lines, and that's part of our own problem. It's like, we want to be hackers, we want to not have rules, but we do need some kind of constraints that makes people understand where their success markers are, that allows us to say, you're doing this right, you can do this better.
Thank you for that. All right, so the next one I'm actually going to direct towards Allie, and that one is, what exactly is burnout as opposed to stress, and what are your go-to methods to deal with it?
Fun topics. So I think there's a huge distinction, and unfortunately, I have my own personal firsthand experience understanding this distinction. So I'm going to just speak from my own personal experience. I'm someone who is a super go-getter, high achiever type of person in my career. It's just kind of how I am everywhere. And I put a lot of stress on myself. And as Danny said, there's good stress and there's bad stress. And I think throughout the 8 or 9 years that I've been in the workforce, I have experienced a lot of good stress, and I kind of thrive off of that in a way. And I've also experienced some bad stress where, there's anxiety and there's the feeling of overwhelmingness and panic and those types of feelings that I would say are bad. And throughout my career, I've had a lot of ups and downs with those feelings, could be on a daily basis, even depending upon what I'm talking about. And, I just kind of thought like that was, that's work and that's life. And I would hear people tell me, oh, you're going to burn out. And when I was younger, especially, and I didn't really know what that meant. And then most recently, about a year ago, I really understood finally what that was. And so I'll tell you the distinction, like feeling a little bit, panicked for a deadline, or you're feeling a little anxious about something that's coming up, or you're feeling a little bit, I don't know, like just kind of like you can feel your heartbeat raising and in the moment. And it's usually a little bit more short term, or maybe it's a week or so because of that thing that's in the future. And the distinction between that bad stress for me and burnout was when I became burnt out, it was a very slow and painful process where it affected not only my mental abilities, but it affected my emotion regulation. It affected me physically, which was really weird, and I didn't expect that. And I was literally waking up in the morning angry. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was waking up angry and frustrated and overwhelmed and wanting to just curl up in a ball. And I think for me, that was the distinction between me experiencing true burnout and me having experienced just kind of regular good and bad stress throughout my career. And so I think, if you're starting to catch yourself feeling just really angry and frustrated and, maybe really like short fuse, or dreading dreading logging in or going to your office, and those really like intense feelings that you can't even help, like they just are there and you can't even do anything to really mitigate it. That is well on its way to, if not already there, in the burnout stage. And so for me, that was kind of the distinction between being able to address some of the bad stress and then not even being able to feel any better in a burnout situation, and also a lot of physical side effects as well with the burnout, which I would say would be different than a lot of the bad stress. So again, just my perspective.
I'd like to hear from anyone else. Danny, unmute you.
Yay.
There you
go. Yeah, that's there was I remember I did a talk at Circle City once, and I had a whole slide of like, what does burnout look like, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times when you start to get that irrational anger at things and you just don't care like you used to, like you've already boiled over, right? It's the metaphor that I like to use, because I have a wife who has very long hair and tends to get stuff stuck all the way in the drain. It's like you have a clogged drain, right? Eventually that water will not go down as fast anymore, and it'll stay. But if you leave it alone, eventually it'll go down. But it's not the best way to do it. But if you turn that water on even a little bit, it's going to overflow and it's going to come back until you find the root cause of unclogging that drain, right? So it's but the advice that I always give to everybody is try and be a little self-aware, and it's always good to have people looking out for you too, of like combinations of things, right? You start to slip, like you're a few minutes late to work, no big deal. Okay, but now you're sleeping a little bit more and you're a few minutes late to work and you're a little angry, then you like little like a password reset ticket sends you into a rage now, just these little things will pile. So stress, people start to think like, oh, it's just stress, but like that's the thing building to clogging the drain completely, and then all of a sudden the burnout will happen, and like it's awful. And that's why in my company we have luckily like unlimited personal time, unlimited vacation time, and recently during COVID I was like, boss, I need 2 days, I need 48 hours, I don't want to do anything, so I'm not going to be in. And she was super cool about it. But also like my team lead later was like, yeah, man, totally cool. But next time, just for us, like try like keep an eye on it. So maybe you don't need to like go down in those 2 days, like, and you manage it better. Maybe if you need it, like take a day when you don't even think you need a day, especially if you're lucky enough, like I am, to have unlimited, like take a day, right? Like take a reset before you need a very large reset. It will sneak up on you.
I will, because I haven't directed any questions your way, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so burnout sucks, number one. And like everybody said, usually by the time you realize you're burnt out, it's too late. And then you have to start the very, very long process of digging yourself out. So I liken it to like your GPA. It's a lot harder to get a 3.0 when you got straight C's for 2 years versus if you just get a bunch of A's and 1 or 2 C's. But I've experienced it. I experienced it in my first role. I went way too hard, way too quick. I actually developed a brain tumor, and that's how I realized that I was like burnt out and this was not good for me. And like the only way I've been able to work out of it is running, literally running away from my problems in the woods with no phone, and just trying to manage it and be more self-aware of kind of the warning signs. The barometer I use is I have to want to go to my jobs 70% of the time. We don't all love working 100% of the time, but if I can make it 70%, it's probably okay. And kind of like what Ali said, anything less than that, I'm like, something's not right here. Something's going on.
Thank you. Doug, did you want to add anything to that? I know you've talked a lot about this topic too.
Yeah, and I think the issue is, as technologists, we almost equate ourselves to computers in an imperfect way, or a false kind of dichotomy of that. Because look, at 8 a.m., I don't operate the same that I do at 8 p.m. You have time arbitrage. There's things within your life and day that have all these external stimulus. That's what we talk about stress. There's lots of stress. There's good and bad stress, as Danny was saying. And it's like sometimes it drives you and it feeds those neurons and things burn in your brain. But at a certain point, you run out of the ability to burn through those kind of neurons and those synapses. And it's not like, oh, I'm just going to put more gas in that engine. No, you need to totally reset, and your body needs to recycle. It's not putting more fuel in. It's not more caffeine or drugs or whatever. I just need to go. It doesn't work on a flat line. So it's very easy to fall in that trap because we want to think, okay, I can hack this somehow. If I'm feeling tired at 4 to 6 p.m., what can I do to step myself up to bring as I was when early? It doesn't exist. And it's a really hard thing. And it's been a really difficult thing for me to go, all right, this is time to step back and return to this tomorrow, because I'll spend 8 hours on something at the end of the day that if I looked at it for 2 hours in the beginning of the day, would have been done. And now somebody else has to deal with my shit and fix problems that I just wouldn't let go. So you just need to build those gating in your decision making. Step back and walk away. Put the gun down. It's just like you need to get away from this stuff, or you will continue to fall in the cycle of burning out. And your brain never really recovers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you guys? I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you think that COVID and having to quarantine at home has really escalated this problem for a lot of people? I know the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, there might have been some people that it made it better for, because like, yay, no more interaction with anybody. Again, this is one of those things where I really had to, before like doling out advice and stuff online, of realizing like I've been remote for a very long time now. Like I am set up. This is my little sanctuary. I have a place. My wife was remote, but we had plenty of room for her, and my son took really well to it. But then there are people, a lot of them, who are not good at, because it is an acquired skill being remote, and some people prefer to be in office around people, but then they're sitting on a fold-out chair in a closet or something, and that's not good either, because they have no other alternative. It would be one thing if it was just them, but their whole family is there. So yeah, I mean, I wonder what the divorce rate's going to be now, like during when all this comes out and people are finally out and about doing things.
Yeah, one of the things too so I haven't been working remote as long as Danny, but I have been before COVID hit, luckily, because it has prepped me for the drastic differences. I'm a very social person. I understand a lot of folks in the industry aren't. But for me, thinking back, also because I didn't answer the second half of the other question, one of the things that I learned through the burnout phase, and I also think it involves this question is just the difference in communication that we have nowadays, because basically everything is virtual or through chat, which is obviously virtual. And I worry genuinely for the people who already struggle with communication in person, because in some aspects, when you have in-person, face-to-face communication, like in the flesh, there's so much more information that's transmitted throughout each party. And so I think, something that maybe can help folks if they're really struggling with not only burnout, but maybe like factors related to communication that affect burnout or affect bad stress. That's something that I would hope that we can help you guys with. Certainly because communication nowadays has drastically changed. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. And also really quick about, I think one of the biggest things I learned, in addition to different things about communication, is setting boundaries. And I think that also relates to this question, because now more than ever, there are no boundaries, there is no perimeter. And I think it's so important for everyone to set their boundaries, whether it's time that you dedicate to work stuff, whether it's the notifications you allow, whether it's the screen time that you have, and setting boundaries, I think is really, really going to be important to mitigate the bad stress and the burnout.
That actually rolls really well into the next question I have. I'm going to throw this one Doug's way, because I haven't heard him pop up in a little bit. And that's, so when you start getting overwhelmed at work, what are the things that you do to mitigate that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things, and if you look it up online, there's a lot of things called like self-care, which sounds kind of like a corny kind of can't response, but it's actually a nice way to kind of focus and look at things. And self-care is the type of things that you look at that's about yourself and deliberate, that help you either cope with stress better, unwind better, or just reset. And so there's a lot of things. And the big focus that I push a lot of people to is really just putting the technology down, which is hard. Like I am obsessed with, like there's just so many things on my desk right now. I got a Surface, 2 MacBooks, a phone, a Kindle. It's just stuff everywhere. And I'm attracted to that. I'm a nerd. Like I love tech. I want to touch it. But I need to set boundaries for myself that at like 7:30, 8 p.m., like walk away from it all. Not even TV, sit down with the family, read an actual book. Because if I'm near technology, I know my addiction enough that I'm going to just check it once. Like it's just before I go to bed. And I know I have to like put all that shit away. And it is so healthy to do that. And then when I wake up in the morning, same thing. Before I touch the tech, like meditate, do some journaling, just do something to kind of recalibrate myself before I get involved into this dopamine kind of cycle of, pleasure reward system. And so I think that's incredibly important. It's like sleep, meditation, journaling. It's really good for people that are very frontal lobe and cognitive to go through processes to kind of rewire your brain and get your thoughts out. It's so important. Like just physically journaling and writing, it just purges a lot of things.
I decided early on I think it was like day 2 of everybody being home. I was on the couch, not dressed for any public consumption whatsoever. And by noon, I just wanted to jump in front of a truck. And I was like, all right, my only way to do this is and this seems kind of productive sometimes, but actually this is something I got from Jack Daniel, is when you're, burned out or whatever, do some more work, but do work worth doing to you. Like for me, just like chilling and meditating and shit, it works in certain situations, but for me, like I went all the way the other way, and I know a whole lot more about landscaping now. I'm currently talking to everybody from a brand new desk I just built, because now I do woodworking. I collect pens. I did all of this random shit, but it feels better. And that brings with it its own little stresses, but it doesn't bring burnout. Every little thing brings stresses, because I take a lot of pride in what I do. So it brings stresses, doesn't bring burnout. And eventually It helps. And guess what? Saturday, I start kickboxing. So maybe I'm not the guy to talk to. Maybe I should shut up.
But now you can kick the wood that you built. So
I hung a heavy bag in my wood shop, like the whole thing. And again,
no.
I know I am very fortunate to have space to do that kind of stuff. But like the overall theme of that is, while it seems counterproductive, do work, but do work worth doing, and like figure out stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, I also took up woodworking too, so I get that.
Oh, I love it, and the smell that comes in, and oh yes.
I think this goes back to Doug's point, like, you know, putting down technology. Sometimes the best thing to do is just like to do some physical work, to work with your hands.
Oh.
Yeah, I totally.
I cook. Like cooking, I was pretty good at cooking beforehand, but I have some company here now, and they're like, "What the hell happened in the last couple months? Like, we won't even go to restaurants if you keep cooking like this." It's such a cathartic thing because it feeds my obsession of wanting to do something, but it's in a non-work related and a healthy kind of way, and I enjoy it. It's investing in a hobby that feeds my like just wanting to be that proverbial chihuahua on a pork chop. Like I want to dig into something, but it's just not work related.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah, I think also just really quick, something that can bridge all of what we're saying that I think is maybe important to just note is to just take some time to figure out what rejuvenates you personally, because as you can tell, everyone has their own perspective of what rejuvenation is and how they go about that. So, take time to just figure out what makes you happy versus what makes you peaceful versus what makes you re-energized versus what makes you just feel calm and like zoned, glaze eyes, whatever works for you, and figure out what gets you there. And then you can try to match like hobbies and different activities or non-activity to get you there. So I think, everyone's different.
Yeah, very good point. I think we're kind of going into the topic of essentially what should be work-life balance. And one of the questions on the list was actually, how do you balance getting the job done and working way too much? And I think that's been partially answered, but I just want to see if anyone wanted to add a little bit more to that kind of side of things.
I mean, so can you say that question again, just so I can wrap my head around it?
Since we're talking about work-life balance, the question is, how do you balance getting the job done and working way too much?
I mean, that's a long conversation about management chains and so my experience, I've worked both with very shitty management, and I've worked with great management, which is where I'm at now. Did you get your thing done? Was it awesome? Are people happy with it? Cool. I don't care how long it took you to do it. If it took you 3 hours and then you did something else for the other, 6 of your day or 7 of your day or whatever, did you get it done in the beginning of the day or the end? It doesn't matter. You got it done and it's great. Are you happy with it? Because I'm happy with it. So that involves a couple different things. And this is for any managers or people responsible for other people that might be on this call with us or watching this later, of checking in with your people. Give feedback. Like, you're doing awesome. So don't work yourself to death thinking you're not doing enough, right? I get that we're all like, economy and all this stuff, and you just don't know, and gotta perform. But recognize when you've gotten the thing done that you're supposed to do and it was accepted and it's fine. And then if you're not getting that feedback, if you don't have a smart manager that knows these things already, or maybe you're a brand new manager, I don't want to call them all dumb because they're not all dumb. But if you're new to it, maybe you got promoted during COVID because people were leaving or getting sick or whatever, and you don't know to give feedback. I'm not talking about feedback just during goal season, right? I'm not talking about feedback just when you're prompted to do it. If you see something happening, I give feedback to other members on other teams, because they help me out with something. I go out of my way to say, hey, who's your manager? Or I'll go through the hierarchy and be like, oh, you report to him? Cool. I'll drop his boss a DM going, yo, Josh did an amazing freaking job for me. Well done. Can you like, I don't know, give him kudos or something? And I make sure to let Josh know that too. So this is something that really can't be handled by the one person and freaking themselves out. You have to get some kind of feedback from somebody, and then realizing like if you're stressing that much over it, you got to talk to your bosses. You got to be like, all right, sanity check me, right? Like beyond check in with your team if you have that kind of good team dynamic, and I really hope you do. Check in with your team. I constantly tell my team and the adjacent team, which is our sales engineers, if you see me dropping shit, if you see me not up to snuff, which you know I'm capable of, like tell me. Go, Danny, you okay? Like you need help with anything? I've noticed this thing. And I'm like, oh shit, cool. You're noticing it? All right, I will course correct that thing. So it very much becomes about communication, especially we all said it before. I mean, I've heard almost everybody on here say it. Of because we're hackers and we work in InfoSec, what we do, hackers are who we are now dependent. We depend on a paycheck for it. So when shit goes wrong, it's not just, oh, I messed up at work and I'm going to go home and play video games. You messed up as a person is what you feel like. So just be in check with that. And yeah, solicit feedback and give feedback.
So one related question that that's actually on my list is actually concerns how do you deal with coworkers, colleagues that actually cause you stress? So, you know, maybe you work on a team where not everyone gets along, and that kind of feeds into your stress, or you work with clients that may be challenging. And I'm actually going to poke Triwolf again because it's been a while since you popped up. See if you have anything that you can contribute to that.
Yeah. So like the fact of the matter is there's always that one person or like three people, depending on how big your team is. It's going to happen. Not everybody's a nice person. Not everyone's easy to deal with. Like that's the reality of life. The biggest thing that I've done is just remind myself that most of the time their actions are because of something that's up with them and not me. Could be something at home. They're fighting their own battles at work. You never know. So I try to give them a little grace, first of all. But second of all, is when people just piss me off, I get up and walk away. Like if I'm not on a meeting. So if I get an email from someone that's like, per my last email, Lauren, because you don't remember to reply to your emails, which I don't, very fair criticism, but I don't want to deal with it. I'll just walk away and just like, okay, get a second opinion, breathe. And then also having somebody to soundboard. So like I talk to my wife about things and redact people's names. And I'm like, look, am I being the jerk here? Much more profane language. But everybody wants the same thing. Everybody thinks they're doing right for their company or doing right for their client. They go about it different ways. And I think we just need to take a step back and understand most people are not doing it maliciously.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to contribute to that as well?
I'm talking a lot, but I have a lot to say about things. The other one, and this is hard even in a good atmosphere where nobody's in a good atmosphere right now. Like the world's on fire, right? So one of the things I loved studying about, there's a principle of social engineering. 1 second, maybe. This is Jackson. Hi, Jackson.
Hi, Jackson.
Of that has gone a long way for me. It's active listening, right? It's about how people give and receive information. And if you are at your wit's end, which could happen, like you could have shitty management who's not listening to you or whatever. So you gotta fix this on your own, right? You gotta MacGyver this. So, and it's easier said than done, but if you practice a little bit of that active listening and be like, all right, how is this person who's being the a-hole to me? Why is it like how is this person responding to me? How am I communicating to them? And then see if you can switch it up a little bit. A lot of times it's what can you do for me? Like you need something, but they see nothing in it for them because there's just narcissists out there like that. So that may be another tactic that might work, that active listening, giving and receiving. And then it's not going to alleviate it, but maybe it could take some of the pressure off. It's just a tactic that's worked for me.
Yeah, I think something that kind of bridges the last question about work-life balance and this question about dealing with difficult people, that I strive to continually better myself on is having perspective. And, Tri-Wolf said it, Danny mentioned it, we've all kind of alluded to this, but like really just trying to take a step back, right? And whether it's work and it's too overwhelming and, having your priorities, but understanding that you are the only person in the whole freaking universe that is you. There will always be more work. There will always be maybe a negative coworker or bad communication, and just trying to keep perspective. Like, is the world going to end? Is the company going to go under because you don't get this report done? Are you going to get fired because you had a little disagreement with your manager? Like, probably not. Hopefully not. And just trying to keep perspective. Like, what really matters in life is that you are happy and you are healthy. And that, thirdly, if you have a job, that you're doing pretty good. And that hopefully can be something that, we can strive to, because I truly believe that keeping perspective and looking out for you, because you're the only person in this whole world who is you. And there are more jobs and there are more tasks and there are more fights to be had, but there's only one you. So something I'm trying to work on.
That's really awesome. And that actually ties really, really, really well into my next question. But I'm going to add a little bit to that as well. And that is, like Tri-Wolf said, you have no idea what's going on in someone's head. I think Danny said it too. But I think everyone believes it if they haven't said it out loud. And that is that a lot of people are insecure, especially right now when everyone feels like, their job might be in jeopardy because of the pandemic and just because of the economy. So I think that's definitely something important to keep in mind. And with that, my next question, I'm going to poke Doug about this one as well, because I haven't heard his voice in a minute. And that is about imposter syndrome. And he seems to be very distracted by an adorable kid.
Hundreds of people here. What do you need?
Hi.
I'm sorry. I missed the last part of that question.
The question was basically like, what is imposter syndrome? And how do you recognize and handle it?
I've been dealing with imposter syndrome since day one. So back in the 90s, when I started reading 2600 and got into it actually goes late 80s, even 90s, I'm like, I can never hang with these guys. These guys can rip through like telco books. Like they were legendary, like living off of roofs in New York City, like patching in brown boxes. I was like, I ain't gonna do that. And so it's been one of those where I've never felt comfortable because I've always felt like I'm chasing the dragon. At some point, you develop enough skills, talent, that you can stand on your own, but you don't have confidence in it. And that's what sucks, is that we don't have, or at least I didn't develop with myself, is this ability to say, hey, no, you're doing a good job. Like, these are people that you should feel comfortable around. And like, as much as I started doing these things where I did like the podcast and meeting other people in the industry, they were even like my heroes, like people like fucking Jericho and Space Rogue. I meet them, they're like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. Like, we just figured this out. I'm like, no, you were supposed to have all the answers. And they're like, no, we're not gods. And so what happens is you start building this whole like perception that somebody knows everything. And it really comes a couple of years ago that I started accepting the fact that nobody knows anything. And it was that whole idea that you become good at one thing, focus on that, and then become that guy, gal, or other, like whatever it is, like become that person that knows about that thing that drives you. You don't have to know everything. Nobody's expecting this idea, this polymath that knows everything. That's an unrealistic expectation. And so that helped me kind of divest this idea, this imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. It's like, no, I'm good at this one thing. That's all I need to be good at. And as more as I focus on that and understand that, and I still question myself to this day. I've been doing this for 20 years, but it's like, you just need to kind of just say, okay, I don't need to be good at everything, and constantly remind yourself about that. And it's hard, because people will be like, oh, this new Kubernetes thing is coming out with this API key. What's the security on that? I'm like, I don't fucking know anything about that. Like, I'm feeling like I'm a noob again. I'm having to research how containerization works and what's the security protocols around that. And it's like, but that's part of the journey. And that's the yin and the yang of being in security is you don't know everything. And as soon as you figure out something, boom, something else comes out and rips the carpet out from under you. And all the stuff I knew about NT 3.5, that's out the window. Now I got to learn Azure security. It's like, damn it. So you have to be adaptable, flexible, and honest with yourself that you're never going to know everything, and it's okay. And just accept that. It's a hard thing, and just be patient with yourself and others as we figure this out, because there's no prescriptive guide plan that says this is how you become the lead hacker in this world. It just doesn't exist, and it's a hard thing to accept. But once you do, you kind of allow yourself to learn more.
I'll add in on that. I felt like an imposter from day one. I still do. One of the biggest things that's helped me is collecting like progress pictures or like little achievements and storing them away on my computer to go look at. And so I can be like, I'm not a complete fraud. Oh my God. Like I was on Danny's podcast. I was in a book. I got promoted twice. And like, hey, little monster in the back of my head, shut up. You're doing okay. Because it like, the fact of the matter is we only have so much brain capacity and you can't know everything. And that's just it. And then also having a super supportive network, like, again, interacting with Danny more. Like I have colleagues who I'm like, oh my God, like you found CVs, like you wrote exploit code. And they're like, hey, I would love to work for you one day. I'm like, this is the highest compliment I've ever gotten. Screenshot that Teams chat, put it away for later.
And by the way, her interview, which is with her and Maggie McAlpine, is now up on youtube.com/GigamonTV under the Second Order Security playlist. Because she is awesome.
You're awesome, Danny.
Love this. This is perfect.
Got uploaded today.
Just to pick up on the one thing that Travel said, and that's so important, is celebrate your victories. Like I've done some stuff where I was like, either ended up in a major news publication, get quoted in something. People are like, dude, you were like the New York Times. I was like, yeah, but I didn't do this. And they're like, you need to like respect the fact that you just did something, like own that and appreciate it. Just, it's okay. Like the little victories, it can be something small. It's just be in that moment and appreciate what you contributed or done or talked about. But don't think that that's not enough or enough. Just enjoy it. And I missed a lot of moments I should have enjoyed way more than I did. And it becomes angry about it. It's a whole other vicious cycle.
I so agree, Doug. I mean, I literally have come to the conclusion that imposter syndrome is basically the lack of self-appreciation. And I think Tri-Wolf has said it, you've said it, we've all experienced it. And it's just simple. It's a lack of self-appreciation. And it's a lack of self-appreciation for the small things, for you as a human, for the impact that you have, and the big things, the little things, the progress that you've made in your own journey. And if you're not appreciating and taking the cognitive steps to really say and highlight and point out to your own self, hey, I did this, and hey, I've come this far. If you're not doing that, you know, who's going to do that for you? And I think really something that I'm working with my mentee on is handling and better managing their imposter syndrome. And the first step after we have talked about it on our first session, the second session we talked about that I want them to try to this week to mentally detect when they are starting to have negative thoughts, and just keep note of that and just try to catch themselves when they start having self-doubt, or they start feeling not good enough, or they start thinking that they don't belong, and just take note of that. And we are going to essentially recognize these bad mental habits that are leading to the feeling of imposter syndrome. And then we are going to, after we recognize these bad negative habits, we're going to start building positive habits, and that in combination with the mitigating of the negative should hopefully really help manage his imposter syndrome. And again, I think it just boils down to increasing self-appreciation and decreasing depreciation of oneself.
Yeah, and I honestly, I knew that question was going to apply to everyone because it's one of the most frequent things that I hear from other people. It's just, everyone seems to have imposter syndrome in InfoSec. And I think probably in tech in general, just because of, I don't know, because we're all nerds and we all expect the most from ourselves in a way that we wouldn't expect from other people. We are our own harshest critic. So, yeah, I think this is really helpful, and I'm really expecting that a lot of people are going to get something out of this particular aspect of the conversation. I do have one other question I'm actually going to ask Ellie, but before I do that, does anyone else want to just add any more thoughts to this particular topic?
The one thing I want to say is we are our own worst enemies when it comes to this, because our alpha dog bravado bullshit that exists within the industry of, oh, you don't know this exploit, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to crack that box, you can't pop that shell. Fuck you, dude. Look, you're not that great and know as anybody else. And all we do is we push each other around and force people into corners because we're not comfortable with ourselves. So stop projecting it on other people. So that's my little soapbox. I'm kind of tall, but I'm still on a soapbox. So.
Amen.
I'll add, if you think you have nothing to celebrate, no achievements, whatever, send me your resume or your blog or your Twitter. I'll be your hype person. If you don't have people doing that, there is something everybody's done. If you just figured out how JQ worked, hell yeah, get it. That's awesome.
I once had someone say that they looked up to me, and I was just like, wait, what? And I do get it now. I get it now. But it was one of the things I had to think about, and then I realized, wait, I've actually done a bunch of stuff, and that is a big deal.
Those are just weird comments when you get them on LinkedIn. If it's me, I'm nobody. That's weird. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. This one's directed at Allie, who did choose this question, and that is, how has being a member of an underrepresented group in tech/infosec affected your mental health, and what's your advice for handling that additional stress?
How much more time do we have?
Let me just dial in my therapist really quickly.
Which one? I got 3.
Yeah, so obviously maybe not obviously, but I identify as a woman, and I, hopefully a little bit obviously, I am of Asian descent. So those two things are generally not in the same category as a lot of people in the industry, and that's okay. And I think the imposter syndrome factor, it's really weird when for me, when you're the only woman in a room, and it's really weird on top of if you're the only Asian person in a room, and you kind of, for me, I feel maybe sometimes a little self-conscious, or the spotlight is on me, but no one else is thinking those things. And I think, again, going back to having perspective and those types of things have helped me. I think I have my own imposter syndrome issues, just being largely a not technical person in a highly technical field. And so I can talk to that aspects. If you would like, just, hit me up offline, because that's kind of a very specialized segment. But yeah, I think it's just, again, appreciating the perspective that I bring to the table and owning it, and really appreciating my differences and celebrating those things. And that's kind of how I've gotten through, is instead of shying away from it, I've fully embraced it. And I'm proud to be a woman, and the only woman in a room full of men or other people who aren't women. And it motivates me. So, right, I channel any of this negative energy that I might have from that. I channel it into let me try to do my best to make sure the next time I'm in this room with these people, there are more people who look like me, and there are more people who don't look anything like me and who don't look like anything like any of these other people. And I think I just try to motivate myself to make change. And that's kind of also like how I deal with it, if that makes sense.
I'm going to ask Trywolf, do you want to contribute anything to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's exhausting. I'm a woman. Like, same thing. I'm usually the only woman, except for my last team where I had another woman on my team, and then we hired a woman intern, and then I left because other reasons, which was like, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing my entire life. Like, I feel so fulfilled. But I'm also LGBT, so I've got a wife, and that brings the whole like other. God, my internet just freeze.
Yeah, you're a little clippy, but you're coming through. Hang on, let me try to unmute you. Let's try it again.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm LGBT. I've got a wife, and that brings like this whole other like existential dread of like, can I come out at work? Are people gonna grab the tiki torches and come after me? Which like luckily is not that common in this day and age. Maybe 1 in 50, but it's still like this existential dread. You're just like, am I about to be found out at any point? Or does my colleague think that I am less than because I'm younger than him, or because I'm a woman, I'm his manager? But like Ali said, it's like channel it into my power. Like I'll throw on Beyonce's Formation anytime I'm like, I need to get worked up and like, this is my room. If you're making me a diversity hire, that's fine, but you're gonna have to hear me speak. And I'm going to represent the best way I can and do what I can to make sure I'm not the only one next time I come in the room. And also like huge props to all the men who like are allies and have stepped up and like been advocates for me. That's the other thing. It's not just enough to be like an ally. There are men who are actively out there like, promote this woman. I'm going to give more airtime to this woman. Danny does it. I know Doug does it. Like, huge kudos because they help make it a lot less painful for all of us, I think.
And you know what? For people that look like me, and again, I'm gonna just like Ali did. I'm gonna shock the world. I'm a white guy. I know. How I identify. It's a weird. I know, Danny. Take a breath. Take a drink. But you know what the problem is? I've been fucking shamed for so many people for like, look, don't talk about these issues. These are not your issues. You don't represent those issues. I'm like, fuck you, dude. We all represent these issues. The fact that I look the way I do is the only reason these issues exist. And so unless people like me speak out about it, it's not going to change. And so this is where like it took me a while. And I didn't understand because I was like, oh, I was going to be accused of like virtue signaling or something else. And oh, like diversity. It's like, I've made so much money on diversity and inclusion because the people that I sell to, the people that I interact with on the other side of the table that are buying my services and products don't look like me anymore, and they haven't for a long time. So we have to stop promoting this gender male stereotype of whatever it is, that's the buyer and that's what somebody looks like. Bullshit. Is everybody's different. And the more diverse that you have on the sell side, buy side, or other side, you get better ideas and more traction and things get done. And we've just forced this idea of like this monolithic of what does somebody look like? It looks like all of us. And so let's address that in different ways and stop getting so caught up in this meme. And it just, I don't know. It just took me a while to get out of that. And I've been, now I'm just like on this whole mission now about mental health and diversity and inclusion because we got to talk about it. And people like me need to start talking about it because I've had people that have been females in the industry that have said, thank God you said something because I didn't want it because I was scared to. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, I don't you understand. Like people stalk me online. They say me threatening things. As soon as I sound feel I feel threatened. I'm like, that's bullshit. They're like, yeah, you don't do that, but other people do. So you need to speak out about it so it stops. I was like, wow. And that woke me up to the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm actually going to jump in on this question too. So I also identify as a woman, and I'm also a lesbian. So I'm again a double underrepresented group, and I've actually realized that I have not had that many issues comparatively. maybe this little imposter syndrome speaking, like, oh wait, I haven't had as many problems. Am I really in the industry? Well, all joking aside, I've been pretty out for a number of years, and I'm also very assertive, very loud, and I have generally not had too many problems pushing through boundaries. And a huge part of that is I've been very fortunate in where I worked, to work with very supportive people who have generally at least come around to to being challenged on certain things that they do or say. And for me, while I can't personally speak to having a ton of issues, I have noticed it around me. And a lot of times if I'm in a meeting, I'm really good at speaking up, not letting people interrupt me. I'm really hard to interrupt sometimes. Like I can absolutely just keep rolling, like I'm a steamroller. But a lot of times I'll use that to actually interrupt and refocus when someone else, usually underrepresented person, is actually being interrupted. Like especially someone who's and I've seen it done with other women or LGBTQ folks, that type of thing. And so I think I've had a kind of interesting experience because for me personally, being a lesbian has also made me sometimes a bit of an honorary man, in that if I play a certain kind of role, I'm accepted a little bit more than someone who's ultra femme would be. And that is hugely problematic and needs to be called out as well. That should not be the case. And it's also a case where I needed to be very outspoken about countering any of that kind of language. Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt because you just talked about interrupting.
I was
like, Jesus, this is the wrong time for this.
You actually caught me right as I was finishing my thoughts, so go ahead.
I was like, this is not the opportune time. I have to head out to go put this little tyrant to bed. So this was fun. As always, anybody to get in touch with me, like, tell you where it is, but continue.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Good night.
Bye, Danny.
Yeah, actually, so hilariously enough, that kind of brings me sort of to the end of the questions. But the only other thing that I want to add to that is like, wait, I'm gonna look at my questions real quick to make sure I'm not missing anything. But I did want to wrap this up around 9:30, so it's actually pretty good timing. No, that's pretty much all the main questions. But I actually just wanted to kind of ask you guys if you have any other thoughts or kind of questions that we haven't really addressed. I know there's like an entire, I don't know, huge pile of things that could be said about this topic. So I'll just ask each one of you to give your parting thoughts. And I'll start with Ali on this one.
Feel bad because I have taken up a lot of mic time already, but I think, again, just to reemphasize the main points I think that are maybe potentially most helpful is finding out what works for you and also finding out what triggers you, right? And just really getting a better understanding of you and how you operate will help you better operate in environments. I think trying to keep a good perspective, whether it's relationships, communication, work things, outside of work too, obviously, especially in this day and age, and trying to just keep a perspective and trying to be graceful about how you go about life, because everyone has other things going on, especially nowadays, guys. And the third thing is just to actively work at practicing self-appreciation. I'm sure everyone has at least one friend that they care so much about and that they're their cheerleader, and that any small victory they are, you're happy to celebrate that with them. And we need to all practice being our own cheerleaders and really just cognitively appreciating our own selves. And so I think all of those things, if we can work on those and really dedicate some alone time to think it through and make systems that work for us personally, you know, I think that can really help with managing the imposter syndrome and burnout and things like that. And so, you know, I just thank you guys for having me on this panel. I'm so excited to be part of this program, and I really hope that I can help my mentee and future folks in, you know, in the future as the program progresses. And just wanted to, you know, invite all of you to reach out to me. My handle on Twitter is Hey Allie Hansen, and I'm always here for you. I'm the biggest cheerleader you may ever meet in your life, and if you need someone, definitely let me know. So thanks, guys.
Cool. I'll poke Doug next.
Hey, it's not getting me to speak. It's getting me to shut up is the problem. So there's a few things. One, yeah, practice self-care. You are worth whatever it is. If you're having problems, if you feel stressed out, don't wait for it to boil over. And I did multiple times to become more of an acute problem. You know, it's like we do in IR or other issues. It's like, don't wait until like the breach has already happened. Like, get ahead of this. Get help, talk to people. There should be no stigma in it. And that's what we all have to do as an industry is remove that stigma about mental health and self-care, particularly with cybers, because we are under an enormous amount of stress to solve esoteric problems with our jobs online. And we need to support each other and get help. The one thing I want everybody to do, and I did this in my Wild West Hacking Fest talk last week, was tomorrow, don't do it now. This has been a lot. When you wake up tomorrow, before you turn on any technology, I want you to take out a piece of paper and write down 5 good things about yourself. It sounds way easier than it is, but it's a fucking hard exercise and you'll understand it more tomorrow. But just do that. And I'd love to see your feedback on the Discord channel, but just take out a single piece of paper and a pen and write down 5 good things about yourself before you start your day.
Right. And last but definitely not least, Triwolf.
I love that. I feel like Allie and Doug have hit all of my major points. Like the biggest thing is I do not care about a password reset ticket if like I need to go get my car plates renewed or something like that. So take care of the things at home first. That like you as a human being matters more than you as just another number at work. Surround yourself with caring and important people. Networks are the biggest thing. We are human. We are social creatures. You have those people around you. If you don't have those people, reach out to me on Twitter. Allie's given her handle. I'm John Viller on Twitter. I have 2 different. Do not go after Triwolf on Twitter. That's not me.
I'll post the Twitter handles in the chat.
Surround yourself with good people. Yeah. I'm happy to hype you up. I'm happy to cheer for you and really just experiment and find what works for you. One of the like resounding things that I've found for a lot of people that work is just getting outside. You don't even need to go run, like you don't need to lift heavy things. You don't need to run. Go walk. Like I force myself to walk every day at 2 p.m. and it's just mini technology break. But otherwise, you've got this. These are unprecedented times. I know like it's a meme at this point, right? Like we've heard it a million times. Geico's saying it to me on my TV, but these are crazy times. Do what you need to do. Give yourself a little grace. If you need to play more Call of Duty than ever, that's fine.
Very cool. So with that, we're going to conclude the panel, but anyone who wants to hang out, go hop on the BTV Meet a Mentor -Meetup channels. I created a second channel somewhere. Yeah, I did. Yes, there's a second channel. So a bunch of us will be hanging out. I have a beer to finish and some decompressing to do, speaking of self-care. So hope to see you all there. Meet a Mentor -Meetup. If the channels are full, I'll spamp another one. So go hang and we'll see you there. Hope everyone has a really great night. We'll see you. Cheers. And we